All of us use the table saw to rip boards and sheet stock to width, but many shy away from crosscuts on the table saw, especially if the parts are small or narrow. And that's too bad because a table saw really shines at crosscutting. In this video, I'll show you a few of my top tips for crosscutting on the table saw. First of all, a clean saw is a safe saw. Nicks on your fence or rough spots on your saw can cause a board to drag or catch as it's being pushed through the cut. So for silky smooth crosscuts, always make sure your saw, table, and fence are clean. I use a simple Scotch-Brite pad and some mineral spirits to rub out my top. Once the saw is clean, follow it up with a little lubrication. I rub a small block of paraffin wax over my fence face and the saw table. Don't forget to clean and lubricate your miter gauge bar and slots as well. Just scribble it on the surfaces and buff out with a clean cloth. For this video, we're going to remove the table saw guard for clarity. On your saw, you should always keep your guard installed. One of the cardinal table saw rules is never make a cut with the narrow side of a board against the fence. The board is just too unstable and can easily lead to a kickback and possible injury. Here's how to safely make those crosscuts. Your table saw's miter gauge is the key ingredient to safe crosscuts. The miter gauge supports and stabilizes the narrow stock through the cut so that it can't twist and kick back. To maximize stock support, I always add a simple sacrificial wooden fence to the miter gauge. Make the fence extra long to start with. Next, raise the blade high enough to cut through the fence. Turn the saw on and trim the fence to length on both ends. Now you can make precise cuts on either side of the blade. The fence acts as a backer board to prevent tear out and shows you precisely where the saw will make its cut. Now we're ready to cut this board to length. Using the miter gauge and the fence, I move the miter gauge to the inside slot and set the fence to the desired length. Position the board so it's tight against the fence and against my miter gauge. I'm ready to cut. If you're having trouble getting a square cut on your first cut, it could be that the stock is shifting a bit on the fence. To overcome that problem, simply clamp the stock to the fence. So far we've talked about cross-cutting long boards, but what if you want to cut something really short and small? There's no room for the miter gauge in between the fence and the blade for a cut like this. All you need is a 3/4 inch block and a clamp. Place the block a short distance behind the blade. Set the fence to the desired length plus 3/4 of an inch to make up for the block thickness. The table saw is your best bet for accurate crosscuts on anything from boards to sheet stock to tiny parts. Have fun and be safe.